Hey guys, it's me, Stephanie Megan, your host of Broken Therapy, and guess the fuck what? Rose couldn't make it to this episode, but it's okay, she'll be back next week. For this week's episode, I'm sitting down with Dr. Molly Burrets. She is a clinical psychologist and a couples therapist based here in Los Angeles with over 16 years of experience. She runs a private practice working with couples who want more connection and less conflict, and with women dealing with anxiety, depression, and all the mental load that comes with work, relationships, and family. She also teaches at USC, and her work has been featured in places like Self Magazine, Brides, HuffPost, Vogue India, and more. In this episode, we talk about why so many of us keep dating the same person in a different body, how our childhood and our parents quietly shaped our love lives, and what it actually looks like to hit rock bottom in relationships and then choose differently. We touch on sex, attachment, people pleasing, and even how all of this shows up when we think about becoming parents and breaking generational patterns. To be honest, y'all, we talk about a whole lot of therapy things, and it was such a great episode, and Dr. Molly is super insightful, so I'm so grateful to have her on the show. But you already know what it is. If you love Broken Therapy, show some love by sharing with your friends, leaving a review, giving us 5 stars, following us on Instagram. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Dr. Molly. Growth therapy. But I know that we were kind of talking about it a little bit, but maybe, share like a little bit more about what like inspired you to become like a therapist, and a relationship therapist, and be involved in helping people with their relationships.
Well, like many therapists, I came to the field, because of a really strong desire to understand myself and my own relationships. I come from a really big family, and it is a family that has a lot of love in it, but also a lot of chaos. And I've always been academically inclined.
Yeah.
So I think that I used my strengths to try to understand the things that I didn't have a lot of control over. And so I used school, and I pursued the highest degree that one can get, a PhD, to learn everything that I could about psychology and human behavior and relationships, because honestly, I experienced a lot of chaos in my own life and my own family of origin. And then that sort of got translated into my adult relationships, my romantic relationships in my 20s. I think people have this idea that couples therapists, that's my specialization, and people think that couples therapists always have perfect relationships. And I really want to bust that myth. I like to say that a lot of what I learned about relationships, I learned the hard way. And I made a lot of mistakes in relationships.
Yeah.
I've been in a really good, healthy, long-term 17-year partnership. Thank you. Yeah, with my husband. And it took a long time and a long road to get there. And part of my road was understanding relationships through my work.
Yeah. And what were like some of the things, that were like maybe some examples of like mistakes that you were making when you were dating, like in your 20s, like, and when it was rough? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I kept making the same mistake over and over again. I was dating the same person with a different name,
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said of a lot of us, that if you look at your failed relationships, you will see, if you are really attuned, you will see common threads. The common thread, by the way, is you.
Yeah.
And certainly the common thread was me. And I was choosing partners based on the initial feeling of falling in love. I was a love at first sight girl. And that's how I based my choice of relationships, is how I felt about that person from the very beginning. And it would either be there or it wouldn't be there. And the problem is if it was there, that feeling was so compelling to me that I was willing to overlook just about anything else about the person because of how I felt about them and that feeling of falling in love, which is so, so compelling. And I wasn't able to really take time to evaluate the person's character, to really understand whether we were looking for the same thing out of the relationship, and to understand whether we would be long-term fit for each other. So it would often be a year into the relationship that I would find out that there was something really misaligned, but we were already madly in love and like living together. And so I experienced a lot of heartbreak because of making that decision from a place that I think it's important. It's important to feel desire, passion, and attraction, but it is necessary but not sufficient for a good functioning relationship.
Yeah. Like, because I feel like you've described so many people that I just know. Like, I was like, a pop of names just like came in my head because I've like seen so many of even my own friends. Like I've seen, like I thought of so many names in my head of the people that like do fall in love really fast. And then, a year or so in, they're like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then they get out of it. Like, what kind of trauma kind of instills that like behavior?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it has to do with our early childhood experiences and the relationships that we have with what are called our primary caregivers. For many people, that's their mom. But, for many people, it's a mother and a father. And I think that a template is formed early on in a child's life about what to expect from the person that you love the most. And we often repeat this template in later relationships in our life.
Yeah.
And I know that in my relationships with my parents, although there was a tremendous amount of love and dedication on my parents' part, because their lives were chaotic, they did not always there weren't always enough resources to go around for our big family. And I'm talking about time, attention, money, care. There just wasn't enough of everything. And so I often felt neglected or not getting the things that I needed the most. I often felt lonely. And I think it created a template for me that the people that love you the most and that you love so much will not always be able to take care of you the way that you want them to.
Why am I going to like cry already? Barely 5 minutes in, I'm like, I could strike a tear. Yeah. No, that's real, like as fuck AF.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I kind of, lately have been battling with like my relationship with my dad. Because just for context, like, and I think I've even expressed it a lot on the show, I've always had a very rough relationship with my mom. Like my mom was just like always outwardly, strict, and like she was the one that would do most of like the physical beating, you know what I mean? Like she was a lot more, I guess, like outwardly an asshole, I guess you could say. And my dad, who is kind of like doesn't have as big of a personality or maybe as bold as like my mom is, like is a bit of like you meet him, you're like, oh, what a nice like guy, and he's like very softer and he's sweet. So he was always like to me like the kind of like the great dad and the bad mom, and also my parents divorced when I was 16. And, my whole life I was like, okay, my dad's like the one I could get away with anything. Like he'll say yes to anything I, ask or whatever. My mom was always like laid down the law and was a lot stricter. And when my parents divorced at 16, and basically just to like give you a really quick timeline of what happened, from 16 they divorced. And by the time, and I was a sophomore in high school, by the time I was a senior in high school, my dad had already quickly remarried to someone that he barely even knew, and then had a baby with her, and then left to Michigan. And so, my mom did cheat on my dad, and that's why my dad was a little bit like obviously heartbroken, wanted to rebound. And instead of trying to like fix it or heal from the situation, he just went to the next one, knocked her up, and was just like, okay, I'm gonna do the right thing, get married to her. And then he like went to go raise his new family. But in that time, I don't think I was able to understand the abandonment that was actually happening. Like when I say it straight up, you're just like, oh yeah, you've been abandoned. But in that moment, he was very like, I'm sorry, I have to go do this. And, and like he would text us like, love you guys, all this stuff. But then throughout the years, like he wasn't there. Financially, physically, like, he was just someone we missed and made us laugh, and he was sweet. So we're like, oh, like we kind of put him on a pedestal, or I put him on a pedestal. Even though my mom was the one taking care of us as a single mom, was always like, ugh, like the villain,
Yeah.
So now that I'm like 34 years old, I have like such a different perspective on like what happened. I don't think my mom is perfect at all, but I see that she was like actually a more present parent in a lot of ways.
Yeah. She stuck around.
Yep. Even though I didn't like it sometimes, you know what I mean? But she stuck around. And I don't know why I'm going to like cry. But
because these things are really, really personal.
Yeah.
And really hard to process. And they stay with us forever.
I don't know. Maybe I needed to cry, that's why. But I also like hate crying when I'm like trying to tell the story, you know? Yeah. And so now I'm like looking at everything like, oh my God, yeah, like my dad left me, you know, or left us and stuff. So I've been battling with like my whole life. Looking at my dad as like, he's the best dad ever. Like he had to do what he had to do. Yeah. It was 2008. The economy was crashing. He had to go like to Michigan, you know, whatever. I would always come up with all these excuses. And so to now realize like, oh, wait, as a woman now and also as an adult, recognizing that the sacrifices my mom had to make and like how love could look a different way really affected my dating life before meeting, you know, my boyfriend now. But it, like, I realized that I would always go for like really seemingly great guys. Like they weren't assholes, but they could never commit. They could never show up. And I was just like what I was familiar with, you know, of a man doing that. So yeah, it's like the patterns do get repeated. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I feel like I've been going through that a lot this week. So maybe that just needed to come out, like the timing of everything. Because it's been like a journey to like realize that and stuff. Like, how do you heal from something like that? You know, like how does healing look like from that? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out like, well, what does that look like for me now that I've realized this reality? Yeah. You know?
I think it's complicated and it's a different pathway for every person. What I can tell you about my healing is that almost the way an alcoholic needs to hit rock bottom to understand they have a problem.
Yeah.
I had to keep getting hurt worse and worse and worse until I was so broken that there was no other option but for me to turn the tables and start looking at myself.
Yeah.
I remember in my 20s, I had 2 boyfriends back to back. Their names were Darren and Eric. And my family referred to them afterward as Derek because they were basically the same guy.
Oh my gosh.
And the pattern was exactly the same. So similar that my family was like, oh yeah, Derek. And that referred to, and still to this
like,
day.
As like a mush.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Still to this day, they're like, oh yeah, Derek. And it can mean either of them because it was the same person, you know? A lot of the healing that I did was in the context of my relationship with my husband now. I made a conscious choice to choose differently and choose something that felt not familiar to me. And there were times where it felt like, I don't know if this is right because I don't have the same like excitement and passion. And like what I realized is that a lot of that feeling was actually anxiety. But I was mislabeling it. I thought it was like the passion and the excitement and the butterflies.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was about not knowing where I stood with this person and whether they were going to call me back and where the relationship was going to go and was it going to work out. A lot of it was anxiety. And I got passion and anxiety very confused. So when I met my husband, and from the beginning, he just always wanted me, always loved me, was so steady and so committed, I started thinking to myself, something's wrong, you know? And there were a lot of ways that I even sabotaged the relationship to try to test it and see, like, this couldn't possibly be real. Someone couldn't just possibly, from the very beginning, want me and only me and never change on that, you know? Yeah. It was so unfamiliar that it felt wrong. But he was a person that was so stable and so secure that he basically wouldn't let me play my old tricks. And he was like, no, I'm going to stay with you and I'm going to show you that there is a different kind of relationship out there for you. And I want to be that person. And he like served as a mirror to me that every time I tried to, I don't know, I think the word is sabotage it. He would just kind of turn the mirror back on me and say, like, what are you doing? I'm not going anywhere. I love you. And he was just such a secure and is such a secure and stable force in my life that I really believe that a lot of my healing was done in the context of a loving relationship. So when people tell me like, well, I can't date because I have to heal first.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it. And I fully support like you doing the things that you need to do to take care of you, to feel strong, you know, whether that's journaling, meditation, yoga, therapy, like I'm for all of those things. But I also feel like there are parts of yourself that you will not have access to confront until you are in relationship. And so you don't have to be entirely healed to be in a relationship. You have to be stable enough. And then the parts of you that still need to be explored and uncovered can be addressed in the context of a loving relationship.
Yeah.
But it does take the right person.
I feel like I relate to that so much because even just going back to what you're saying with the whole like rock bottom mentality, I feel like before I met Bryan, I had a boyfriend before him and it was almost like the one that really broke me down and he cheated on me and all that stuff. I was just like, man, I was so like just done with feeling that like anxiety. Like I never even like put two and two together. Like there was complete anxiety that was running that relationship. And once I was just like done with it, I was like, man, I don't want to ever feel that way again. Like it was that rock bottom thing for me. And I've always given advice to people to be like, sometimes, to like heal from certain trauma that we were taught. Sometimes it's like you kind of need to like keep going and keep getting into these like unfortunately like awful situations until you learn. But I've always like thought, I'm like, is that a bad idea? It's like, do we need to like break ourselves down in order to learn? I felt like I was always conflicted with that kind of advice that I would give, but hearing it from you and the way that you've articulated that has like, okay, like maybe I was onto something there.
Yeah. Well, I wish it weren't the case.
Right.
And certainly there are some lessons in life that I have learned without having to, you know, get destroyed in the process.
Yep.
But the ones that are hardest for us are the ones that are so persistent that they will just keep coming to find us until we look them in the face and deal with them. Yeah,
because I used to think like before in my 20s when I was dating all the guys, like the nice ones like felt so boring. You know, I was just like, ugh, because it was just like, they were so nice. They wanted to like get to know me. They wanted to take me out. How dare they? How dare they? Like, ew, you know what I mean? But it makes sense because it's just like, it wasn't fueling that kind of like comfort that I was used to of the anxiety of it all, the abandonment. And you always hear those theories or like love is like a drug. Is there something like just scientifically that happens to us like when we are feeling those like passions / anxiety?
Yes.
Like what is
falling
that?
In love.
Yeah.
Falling in love is like a drug. And the neurochemicals that it activates in the brain are the same neurochemicals that get activated by cocaine.
Ooh. Okay.
You are on a substance, basically, when you are falling in love.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell people, you should be with a person for a full year before you make a decision about the relationship that requires you to dramatically change your life.
Yeah.
Now, does it happen that people have these whirlwind relationships where they're together 3 weeks and they get married in Vegas and then they're together for 20 years and have kids?
Yeah.
It absolutely does. But it is not typical. You always hear these stories and they get highlighted because they're very interesting, but it is not what usually happens.
Yeah.
Usually when you make your decisions from a place of essentially being under the influence, your judgment is skewed and you're not making your decision based on factors that are likely to have longevity.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you want a lifelong relationship, then when you get into a relationship, you have to be thinking about a long life. What is going to be important to you 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now?
Yeah.
Not the feeling of falling in love. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
You will always want to feel connected to your partner, in love with your partner, but life is hard and it presents a lot of challenges. And if you marry someone, it's essentially the same as going into business with them. So if you wouldn't go into business with your partner, you have no business marrying them. Because it's a contractual agreement, it's a legal agreement, and especially if you're going to have children, you need to find someone who you can run a team with.
Yep.
Someone that is trustworthy, loyal, reliable, and it takes time to determine whether someone has those traits.
Yeah, for sure. Because people could like present themselves so beautifully the first like couple of years. But how long does it take to really get to like know somebody like truly to the core?
The research shows us that it takes about 2 years for the falling in love feeling to kind of fade, for the honeymoon period to end. The research says between 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
But I really think that after a year, if you have been through difficult things with someone, if in that year you've had some conflicts, difficult things have happened in your life, you can start getting a sense of who that person is. But how long does it take to know someone? It could take a lifetime. You know, it's not that you have to know everything, but you have to know enough.
Like, I feel like one of the things, like, I knew Bryan was like the person for me was during COVID when we started dating. So, you know, there wasn't like any physical dates. It was like a lot of phone calls. Second phone call we had that was like 11 hours long. And I've always wanted to be a mom. I always told myself at a young age, like, to be very intentional about who's going to be like the father of my kids. And so I would never say that about like any guy. But after that second phone call, it was just something in me that was just like, oh, this is going to be the father of my kids. It was instinctual, but it was also because I was like consciously like getting to know him. There was just a thing that was like, okay, this is someone that I would want my kids to have as a father.
Yeah.
Versus like the father of my kids. But it's like I would want him to be a father of someone's kids, if anything, my kids. You know what I mean? Like that's
because
the type of
character traits.
Exactly. Like that's the type of like man that I would want my kids to be able to like look up to and have in their life, you know, because it wasn't like, how is he making me feel or whatever. It was just truly like the character.
His character.
Yeah.
And I love that you got to know him essentially over the phone.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of benefit in that because, you know, if you're not able to see someone in person, can't then have sex with them too early, you know, and having sex with someone can also really cloud your judgment about who that person is.
Yeah. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like people are always have come on the show or just conversations that people have like, don't have sex on the first date, don't have sex too soon. And I just think that like, I'm very conflicted on like what I think about that. But I wonder what your thoughts are.
You know, I don't have like hard and fast rules about it. Here's what I can say now. Of course, I don't think I felt this way in my 20s, but here's what I would say from years of experience.
Yeah.
If I were dating now, I would not be having sex with someone until it was very clear that we were in a committed relationship. And the reason is because when you have sex with someone, and it happens for women more than men, a chemical is released called oxytocin.
Yeah.
And it's the same chemical that gets released when you cuddle. It's the same chemical that gets released when you breastfeed your baby. And it is literally evolution's solve for creating connection between people. It makes you feel connected to a person. It gets released when you have sex. And so if you have that biological experience and you get connected to someone without knowing who that person really is, then your judgment becomes clouded. And I just really want to be clear-headed about these choices. And that's what I want for women. I want them to make these choices from a place of really excellent judgment, because more and more research is coming out that shows the people that benefit from marriage are men. Men benefit from marriage more than women on physical health outcomes, mental health outcomes, financially, on almost every measurable outcome. Men benefit far more than women do from marriage. In fact, a lot of women experience physical and mental and financial health declines as a result of getting married because their focus in life becomes about taking care of other people rather than themselves.
Yeah.
So men benefit from marriage a lot more than women do. And yet we're sold this lie that we have to get chosen. We have to be somebody's wife.
Material.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be a wife in order to have a fulfilled life.
It's a brainwashing that happens to, I think, support the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And look, I am the biggest fan of marriage. I'm in a wonderful, happy marriage, and I'm a marriage counselor.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not poo-pooing marriage. I'm saying it matters who you marry. So you want to have as clear a head as possible and the best judgment possible when you make that decision.
I never knew that fact, and that's really interesting to hear like that perspective and that like knowledge and stuff. So, well, we have a voice note from Rose that she sent because I know she had. I know Rose couldn't make it, but she definitely wanted. She was super excited to meet you and had a bunch of questions. So I was like, okay, I was like, send a note and then do it like this. So.
Hello, Dr. Molly. I am so bummed I cannot be there with you and Steph. I am a huge fan of you and your work. I'm so sad that I've not been able to be there. Los Angeles traffic had a completely different narrative, unfortunately. But I have a question, and my question is, I'm a very independent woman. I can sometimes have very, let's just say, aggressive dating styles in the sense that I just say what I want, and I'm very hyper independent. I was wondering if you had any tips, tricks, or advice on someone who is trying to kind of, I guess, soften a bit, if only because I don't want to feel like I'm giving up who I am in this current dating climate, but it also feels like I need to compromise. And I was just hoping if you had some advice on someone who is as independent as I am, who finds it very difficult to rely on a man, and how I may soften or find compromise.
That's such a good question.
Yeah, that
I
is
wish
such
I
a
could
really
meet
good question.
her.
I know, she's next time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Rose, here's what I want to tell you. You became hyper independent for a reason. Becoming hyper independent usually happens because it has to happen. Somebody has to take care of you. And it sounds like Rose learned that that person needed to be herself. And so I like to think of hyper independence as a protective mechanism. It protects you from the feeling of being vulnerable and the idea of what might happen to you if you let your guard down. There's a degree to which being hyper independent, I'm like, wow, what an awesome coping mechanism you developed, Rose, to take care of yourself when you needed to. But what happens with our coping mechanisms is when they get overexpressed, sometimes we activate our coping mechanisms when we don't really need them. We're using it too much. We actually are safe to let our guard down and release the hold that our coping mechanism has and be a little bit more vulnerable. Except it's our habit to always have this coping mechanism in play, always be hyper independent, always be protecting yourself.
Yeah.
And so I would say, ask yourself, like, is it possible that I could actually be safer than I think I am? And if I were safe in this moment, how might I show up to this? Would I be able to let my guard down a little bit and risk the possibility that someone could take care of me or potentially hurt me, right?
Yeah.
I think of this hyper independence as a very masculine energy. I hope people understand. I'm not saying that this is what men do. I'm saying the feminine energy is one that is receiving and is one that is sort of quiet. I think it's the yin in the yin.
The demure.
Yeah, right. That's a feminine energy. A masculine energy, which I have a lot of, and all high achieving women have a lot of masculine energy, is the do, the go get 'em, the hyper independent. And we develop this masculine energy because there are things we want to achieve, and sometimes because we're trying to protect and take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
There needs to be a balance in relationship of masculine and feminine energies, no matter what your gender is. It sounds like she has a lot of expressed masculine energy, and I would be interested to find out from her, when you're feeling really safe, when you're feeling really feminine and you can let your guard down, how do you show up?
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I think Rose definitely, and I can speak for her because we're best friends, and I feel like we'll obviously talk about dating and relationships a lot, so I can speak to her to a certain extent. But from what she's told me and what I've grasped from her experience is that, I mean, she does really function, I agree, in like her very much masculine energy. But she says that the only time that she will be in her like feminine energy would be like in bed. So like during sex. But like on the date, like she's okay with like paying. She's okay with like being like the, you know what I mean? Like the super hyper independent, like you don't need to take care of me. But when it's like she is in the bedroom, which, you know, I feel like in a lot of ways, I think that's like her strength is like she loves sex. She's very like open about that. She's a Samantha Jones from Sex and the City is the perfect way to describe her. That she's like, is like okay to like be that kind of like feminine energy. So I don't know if there's something to it there. But also what I've noticed about her when she is in relationships is like the total opposite of the hyper independent, honestly. Like she nests. Like I won't hear or see from my friend for a while, you know? That's like her habit in that. So, but I guess, you know, maybe next time when you do get to meet her, she could express more what that would look like. But from what I know, that's what she's told me. Yeah.
And I would want to ask her, what are you afraid might happen if you show up less independently? on these dates.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? What are you actually afraid would happen? What would they think about you? What could happen? And that might give her some insight about why she shows up the way she does.
Yeah, Rose, let us know, because I can't speak for you right now. But yeah, I mean, I think that's, very interesting that you do say that. I remember actually, well, this isn't really like masculine, feminine energy, but I did have kind of like kind of an enlightenment of some sort of like, so basically me and Bryan together 5 years, I've realized lately how much I am such a people pleaser in the relationship, and if anything, maybe too much in a sense. So I did another podcast with somebody else, and Bryan and I were talking about how we've like fought in a relationship, and there's one particular fight where I was supposed to have like a meeting, but then he also had to like take the car to LAX. It was like it was a conflicting schedule, and so I was like, okay, before I make a decision when to schedule this meeting, let me see what would work best for him. Like, let me consider him. Like, let me go in here and be considerate and see what he wants to do. And he was seemingly just like very irritated because he didn't even want to do the task at all. And he just said, he kept telling me like, no, you choose. But then I kept like telling him like, no, well, this reason is because of this, whatever. And he starts like lashing out, not like aggressively, but he was just like, oh, like fine. Like, you never listened to me. Like, he felt really unheard in that moment. And it felt like I was like pushing him towards a direction instead of just like accepting what he was telling me by just choosing a time. And in my reaction though, I was just like kind of annoyed a little bit on why he reacted so dramatically. But I was like trying to figure out ways to just like calm him down, please him. And I remember the guest on the show was just like, well, how did you feel in that situation? We know how he felt. He felt really hurt by all of this stuff, but how did you feel? And it was weird because I didn't know how to answer that. Like, I felt like I was able to say like, okay, I was annoyed, but I didn't know what the next layer of feeling was after that. And I think in conclusion, what I've realized is that I've never really like ever think about truly my deep feelings, that I just try to like, I'm so consumed in trying to help him and his reaction and how he's feeling and trying to get into the meat of why he felt the way that he felt, that never once did I consider myself in the situation. So it's like, that's just like one example, but I've looked at that in so many different parts of my life, where even in work it happens, even in friendships, where I feel like I moved in a way where I was just trying to like make everyone feel so much better, but never like sometimes considered like my deeper feelings besides just being annoyed or being whatever, So I don't know. I think I just like, what's the psychology behind like people pleasing, especially in relationships and all that?
It really sounds to me like when somebody else in proximity to you is having a big feeling, that big feeling becomes the priority, and that it becomes what you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And this makes sense to me, knowing that you're someone who grew up around a mom who had big feelings that you had to fit in around. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you would be impacted by her anger.
Yeah.
And you probably learned to work around her and to be flexible and to have her feelings come first, since she had big feelings and you were kind of, it sounds to me like she had a lot of tension and stress in her life and maybe lashed out with anger.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when we grow up with a parent who gets really big like that and has a lot of big feelings, we tend to make our feelings smaller because it's about staying safe and keeping ourselves safe emotionally. And you can't have two people in the room that have big feelings, because then you have a major clash. And especially when one of them has authority, the parent, and the other, the child, doesn't, it really is the child that has to become smaller to accommodate the other person.
Yeah. So in that moment in the fight with Bryan, like, what would be essentially maybe like a better way of like handling something like that? Because I mean, he's really good at just eventually coming down and, and then we could talk it through and stuff like that. I think that we've like mastered that, but there's like a moment, respectfully, Bryan like gets into like his little child like tantrum that I'm just kind of like, whoa, buddy, like, yeah, this is very like a lot. So like, I guess what would be something that I should do in that moment to handle the situation?
You could say something like, I see you're having a really big reaction and you're angry. I want to talk to you about this, but not in this way. I'm going to take a little break and maybe we can revisit it when you're feeling like a little less activated.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard for people to rationally talk things through when they're having a big emotional reaction. What you don't want to do is be like, if you're going to yell at me, I'm out of here. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's an abandonment. And that makes someone feel like I can't have a big feeling or else you won't be there for me. But if you can tell a person, like, it sounds like we're not able to like really talk this through right now because emotions are too high.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a break and we can revisit it when we're feeling like a little bit more settled?
Yeah.
Then it's like a commitment to coming back to the topic. You're not abandoning that person, but you also are taking care of yourself as well. Like, you don't want to be the target of someone's rage. And sometimes someone needs to just take care of themselves for a little bit before they can talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Because another thing too that I've noticed, like a reaction that happens is like, you know, let's say he's upset with me about like dishes or something like that. And then I will get really like defensive and really like sometimes even start like tearing up and crying. Like it almost feels like teenage Steph like comes out. And like that's like something that like maybe my big emotion is, right? Like where I get really emotional like that. And it does get like crazy because I do think that there's, bringing it back to the parent, there is that similarity is of just like, he reminds me of my mom in those ways, and not that he's anything like her, but in a lot of ways maybe triggers those like mommy issues. Yeah. And it's just been, I think, something that we've been like trying to work on in the relationship, is him not throw so many tantrums, but also for me to like not react in those kind of childlike ways too. But I think for him, and I don't know, maybe this is more of a conversation for him personally, but like even his tantrums, like he tends to like, he never feels heard, and I'm like trying to be there and listen, but like sometimes he's just like, it almost like he starts just blaming himself before anything's even discussed or resolved. He's like, fine, everything's just my fault, it's just my fault, everything's my fault. Sometimes I'm trying to unpack what the psychology is behind that for someone to like just get to that reaction before, even when I don't even feel like in that moment I was like blaming him, I was just had a conflict or a situation that I disagreed on or whatever.
Well, I think it makes a ton of sense, and it's totally natural for you to be curious about his reactions and why he has them.
Yeah.
I also want to encourage you to let Bryan do that work for Bryan.
Yeah. I'm doing it again.
You don't have to figure out Bryan's psychology for him.
Yeah.
He's totally capable of doing that. And if you kind of step in and do the work and try to sort it out on his behalf, you will rob him of the opportunity of doing that for himself.
Yeah.
And the truth is that only Bryan can really know the answer.
Yeah.
And I think he can figure it out.
Yeah. I think I also do that thing too. Now that you reminded me I did it again, where like I'm always trying to figure out someone's psychology. Like as of lately, I'm trying to figure out my dad's psychology, my mom's psychology, my brother. Like I'm just like constantly trying to like figure out what the hell is going on in everyone's mind, and just even like try to make sense of everything.
And do you understand, Stephanie, that is I don't know, my sister's name was Tiffany, and I just called you Tiffany. That is so funny. Like, why did I call her my sister's name? That sounds like a pattern for you.
Yeah.
Where you prioritize other people's experiences and feelings and trying to figure them out and work around their experiences.
Yeah.
But when you can turn it around and take a look at yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because the whole reason for wanting to figure someone else out is because they have done something that's hard for us.
Yeah.
You know, like, why did she act that way and treat me that way? Oh, it's because she's this way, that way.
Yeah.
But I really want to encourage you to put the focus on you. How do you feel about how your mom reacted and treated you? And how has that impacted you?
Yeah.
Less so much about why is she who she is, and more about why are you who you are.
I think sometimes it's like I do it because it's like, okay, I know it's from my mom. And so then my mind goes to like, why did my mom do that then? You know? So it's almost like my way of trying to like just kind of trace.
Yeah. If you can understand why she did it, then you'll just have maybe more peace around it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I just feel like I'm doing that a lot. Like I feel like it's like even heightened like as of lately, and especially this week where I'm like having so many conversations with like people in my family and like my parents and stuff, and just trying to be like, so what's your relationship like with your parents? Like I'm trying to like understand them as a human being, and maybe as a patient, as if I'm a therapist or something. I don't know, but like I think I'm just trying to like connect the dots.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
and it can help you develop empathy for a person when you understand what difficult experiences they had that led them to be who they've become.
Yeah, it seems like it's okay to do that, but then I do have moments where like maybe I do it too much where I neglect like, okay, but what's Steph feeling? Like, why is Steph like responding that way?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
it's
I
just
think,
about balance.
Yeah. And I think maybe sometimes it's like not all about getting answers. Is that like okay too? Okay.
Absolutely. Well, shit, man. I hope it's okay because there's a whole lot of shit in my life that I'm probably never going to have the answers to.
Yeah.
And you have to come to terms with your life not knowing all of the facts.
Yeah.
You know, I still have an important relationship in my life that I don't fully understand, you know, why it ended. And that relationship ended, oh gosh, almost 20 years ago. And I will never know. And I have come to accept that I will never know. And that has to be enough. I know what I experienced.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you have to give yourself the closure because another person cannot or will not do it for you.
I think sometimes I like question my experience, weirdly enough. It's like, okay, yeah, I was like, I believe I went through that, but sometimes I'm like, did I? Am I over exaggerating? Is that like, am I gaslighting myself? Am I like questioning myself? I don't know, but there is those moments where, man, I must have been a really bad person in this situation, because I think the first thing I'm thinking about right now is like I'm just traumatized up everything on you. I had like a recent like friendship falling out with a bunch of people I went to high school with. Like we were girlfriends, like we were all like really, really close.
That's really hard.
Yeah, like friendship breakups. Ooh. And so I've really been battling with that for like a few years now. And, you know, we don't have to go down how everything happened, but essentially like I almost feel like I was abandoned in a situation. Like I was really kicked out and exiled of this group, and it like shakes me up because I always feel like I always want to be a good friend. Like I take pride in being a good friend. I always try to be a better person, but it just like makes me feel crazy sometimes to be like, well, maybe Steph, like you did do a bunch of things wrong, because look, these people, a group of girls don't want to be friends with you, you know? So it's just like, it's so conflicting.
But let me tell you this.
Yeah.
Any important relationship that ends, Stephanie, if that person or those people cannot come to you and say, here's what you did, here's how it hurt me, and here's the chance for repair.
Yeah.
If they don't give that to you, there is nothing you can do.
Yeah.
If you're spending years wondering, what did I do wrong? How was this my fault? And no one has ever given you an opportunity to really explain that to you, it's not fair. It's like when someone ghosts someone in a friendship or a relationship and you never know why. It's a horribly unkind and emotionally immature thing to do to someone. Yeah. And it's something that, I get it. If someone is abusive to you, you need to cut it off.
Right.
No questions. Like, I get it. But in a close relationship and friendship, that person always deserves to hear what has happened and why.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think there's been a couple of them that were able to give that to me after a few years. But there's like,
after years?
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Horrible. And I, of course, had to do the reaching out to be like, hey,
what
you know.
happened? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but there's one particular friend where it's like, where we never had that conversation. We did run into each other, and it was like, we weirdly acted like everything was okay. Still acknowledging that there was obviously like, we need to talk about this, but like, we're in this moment. We're really, this is not the right time and place to do this, but like, let's have dinner soon and stuff. And so when I tried to like reach out and do that, it was like, I got hit with the text being like, I'm still processing everything, and I just don't think that I could like have lunch with you at this moment and like do that, you know? And I'm like, it's been like 4 years. You're either gonna like talk to me about it or you're not, you know?
Some people just do not have the fortitude
to
really be upfront with their feelings, and conflict is very, very hard.
Yeah.
And not all of us have the ability to tolerate it. And it just says a lot more about where she's at than what you did.
That was a hard one, because I felt like it was just, me and her never even had like, the issue that was all happening was like not even between me and her, it was between me and this other person, and we resolved that. So it was just kind of like really confusing that there was that kind of that message that was given to me, because I'm just like, girl, you were like the least of my problems, but now it seems like there's a lot of issues here, and it's like you can't even tell me. And it's just, I don't know, like when people are super avoidant, it's like my biggest pet peeve, because I'm like, I just want to talk about it all. Can we talk about it?
Exactly how I feel. It's to me the most hurtful thing when someone will not talk to me about why they're upset, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I will ruminate about that.
Me too. And I'll try to again, try to find the psychology in it to try to find some sort of like closure. And then it takes me a really long time to find like closure and to like accept something and move on.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the psychology behind that? It's probably the anxious attachment styles, you know, like it's a lot. So,
and when relationships end and you don't have control over it, as what happened with your dad.
Yeah.
A relationship ended, a chapter anyway.
Yeah.
Ended that you did not have control over. That's very painful.
Yeah.
Very painful.
The abandonment is definitely real. What's something that like, why do people become avoidant? Like what are like some traumas that like get someone to be an avoidant attachment style?
Yeah.
Because I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Like I don't, you know.
Yeah. What the research shows is that, and they did this experiment with children actually, and what they found from this experiment was that when children had a caregiver that was neglectful, they responded by having avoidant styles. And so the child essentially learns not to count on anyone else.
Yeah.
And learns that getting close to someone that's a thing to be anxious about. And so they push people away to have distance when they have a primary caregiver who's neglectful. And in the research, what neglectful means is when the child cries, the mother doesn't respond.
Oh, so it stems from like just like being an infant, essentially.
Yes. What an anxious ambivalent style comes from is when the primary caregiver sometimes responds and sometimes doesn't respond. So the child doesn't know what to expect, including they don't even know to expect that she's just not going to be there. So when a child knows to expect that the mother's not going to respond when they're crying, they learn how to cut it off and they learn to become avoidant and meet their own needs and push people away.
Wow.
But when a child sometimes gets a response from the mother, but sometimes doesn't, and that response can't be predicted, it's uncertain, that's when a child tends to develop a clingy, needy attachment style, that anxious ambivalent attachment style where they chase people and they search out, trying to get the
one
care,
little,
trying to get that, remember that one time you were there for me when I cried, and you want that again.
So basically, like all of these attachment styles, essentially, is it all the time or most of the time it comes from like being an infant and being like from, you know,
the theory is that it begins in infancy and through early childhood up until the age of 5.
Yeah.
Now, attachment style can change over time, and that's because other important love relationships come into our lives. And so if you have an anxious attachment style, you can become securely attached through having a primary love relationship with someone who gives you a secure attachment, right? And you can also be securely attached and end up experiencing insecure attachment because you had a relationship with someone who was unreliable or neglectful.
Yeah.
Okay. But the template is usually set early on in life.
As someone who wants to be a mom soon, I'm not pregnant, but like that, because I feel like there is this, and we're about to wrap up, but I'm like, I just have so many questions about everything. I guess before we go, like maybe a little bit of like the motherhood aspect of it, of what I can do as like a new mom when my baby does cry. Because I always hear the thing, like I feel like I even heard it from my mom actually, is like when they're just crying, just let them be, they'll get over it. Sometimes they're just throwing their little like tantrums.
I totally disagree with that.
Okay, yeah. I was like, I mean, you know, so like what is that kind of, how do you approach something like that, you know?
I have 2 children, and my primary goal with them was I just want them to have secure attachment styles.
Yeah.
I want them to have what I don't have. And so I just always tried to be responsive to them when they cry. Now, that doesn't mean that they cry and they get what they want. What that means is that they cry and mom pays attention and mom is there.
Yeah.
So even if that's to say, let's take an example. My son's 7 years old now.
Yeah.
So let's take an example. And he's crying because he wants to have more screen time or more Minecraft time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm saying to him, I'm saying to him, I know that's disappointing, baby. We've had all the screen time we're going to have today.
Okay.
And if he's still crying, I'm going to say, I know that's really hard, bud. What can we do to help you feel better? Give me more screen time. Well, that's not an option, but we could play Uno together, or I can set up some books in your room for you to read. Does one of those sound better? It's not about just giving a kid anything they want. Absolutely not. Kids are dependent on us to set boundaries. That's how they feel safe, is that we create a container for them and we tell them what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But when my baby cries, I'm damn sure going to that room and I'm holding them and I'm giving them words of reassurance and I'm letting them know that I am there.
Okay. Well, I just need to tell my mom that that's not true. Because I even told her, I was like, I'm not going to hit my kids. And she's like, I hear what you're saying, but some kids just need to be hit. And I'm like, but so it's just, sometimes I'm questioning my mom's things, but
in my book, that's called physical abuse.
That kind of is a bit of like a form of abandonment too. Yes. Like when you do hit your kids, it's just kind of like, I mean, I remember that feeling of just being like, oh, of just not feeling.
The emotional wound is much worse than the physical.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Hitting is not how you teach any living thing how to learn. You teach someone how to learn by setting an example for them and then rewarding them when they do a good job.
Yeah.
Kids don't learn by being punished. Kids don't sit there and think, well, I got slapped the last time I jumped on the couch, so I'm not going to jump on the couch this time. It just doesn't work. The only thing a child learns from being hit is that you're not a safe person.
Oof. And
that they can't come to you when they're in need. And a child who gets hit learns to lie to their parents so that they don't get in trouble.
And I lied all the time.
Yeah.
I definitely would learn to literally lie to my parents.
Because you learn that this person is not safe and that you can't be imperfect. You can't make mistakes because you will be punished for them.
Yeah.
And so, no, that's not a strategy that I recommend.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't plan to hit my kids, and I completely agree because I know what it's like to be on the other end of that and stuff. And
I also want to say that I also get that somebody taught your mom that was the way to do things. Mm-hmm. And so I don't blame your mom and I don't have judgments about your mom. I wish that she had known better.
For sure. I think I definitely, for so long, struggled with just like hating her. Not hating her. I'm hating strong. Well, maybe feeling like I was hating her for doing that. But I think obviously now being older and, educating myself more and understanding trauma and generational trauma is like, I've looked at that as like, oh yeah, because her mom did that. It's like she's only doing what she's familiar with and what she's known. And that's
right.
So.
And I really believe that most parents are doing the best they can with the resources that they have.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know for me, my best always hasn't been good enough.
Yeah.
And the same is true for most people. Sometimes the best you have to offer is not enough.
Yeah. Well, this was so good. I felt like you healed me in different categories of my life. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining me. I know that you're allergic to the cats, so I'm so sorry.
We did good. I think
we did good.
Well.
Yeah. I was like, the Claritin hit. I feel like it worked.
Did it.
Yeah, so we're good. So yeah, any last words? Maybe do you want to have any final statements, or do you want to tell people where they could find you?
Yeah, I can tell people where they can find me because I'm really trying to grow my Instagram.
Yay! Okay.
And if they follow me on Instagram, which is Dr. Molly Burrets, that's DrMollyBurrets. If they follow me, then they will get the notification when my podcast goes live.
Yay!
So I am starting my own podcast, and I'd love for people to take a listen.
Yay! I definitely will take a listen, and we'll have all the links below and stuff. So
thank you so much. I had so much fun with you.
This was so much fun. Thank you. And the next time I want you to meet Rose because I feel like Rose,
absolutely.
It was really exciting to meet you. I know.
I need to get you here, girl.
Hello. So we'll definitely schedule that and coordinate that next time.
Okay.
But, all right, guys. Well, y'all know what it is. Follow me, Stephanie Megan, or go to brocotherapy.com. All that shit is there. Bye. Broke Girl Therapy.